Listen to this podcast now
on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Leadership Thread with Dr. Peggy Polonis.
I'm Dr. Peggy Polonis. Join me on each episode where I unravel the story that shaped leaders, tracing the thread that led them where they are today. Because leadership isn't born in adulthood. And thank you once again for joining us on the Leadership Thread, education, ethics, and sustainability.
Download all of Red Apple Media's podcasts right now through your favorite podcast platform.
When you want your spring break to feel like... and your kids' pool day to feel like... and your hotel bed to feel like... ooh, and room service to feel like... because at Hilton, hospitality feels like...
Your cabana's ready. Would you like fresh towels?
It matters where you stay. Book now at Hilton.com. Hilton, for the stay.
Let the Record Show with Judge Richard Weinberg and Chairman Jesse Garcia on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back to Let the Record Show with Chairman Jesse Garcia of the Republican Party. Jesse is the Vice Chair of the New York State Republican Party and the County Chair of the Suffolk County Party. With us, our co-host, noted attorney, commentator, and essayist Eric Levine. I'm Judge Richard Weinberg, and joining us now in this final segment of this week's show is our very good friend, Congressman John Faso. John is a graduate of Georgetown Law School. He was a minority leader of the New York State Assembly. He was a member of Congress. He is a great lawyer, both election law and redistricting, and a good friend to Jesse, to Eric, and to myself, and most importantly, a good friend to constitutional government and responsible governance. So, John, welcome to Let the Record Show.
Judge, it's great to be with you and your listeners and your co-hosts, and a shout out to my old family and friends living in Massapequa and Seaford, where I grew up.
Well, we all have connections to the island. Everybody on this call has connections to the island. So they used to say that 1 in 4 people have connection to Brooklyn in the whole country. I don't know if that's true anymore, given the lawless immigration policy, the Bidens, but certainly a lot of us have connections to Long Island. That's true.
Yes.
So,
and we wanted to talk about that other island, Staten Island.
Well, that's exactly
Staten
right.
Island.
So let me set this up for our listeners, John. There was a whole controversy. There was a constitutional amendment. There was a constitutional provision that had to do with an independent districting commission. The Democrats played games with it. There was litigation. Ultimately, lines were cut. The lines have been established. Nicole Malliotakis has a district which is part of Staten Island, part of Brooklyn. She herself is half Cuban, half Greek. So she herself is Latino. And all of a sudden, this character, this hired gun from the Democratic Party, character named Mark Elias, who makes a living bringing these trumped-up nonsense lawsuits to cause disruption and waste of resources, time, and effort, and attempt to fix the lines. And they bring a case. They bring in the state Supreme Court. And there's a judge named Perlman who used to work for the Democratic leadership in Albany, as well as for the Democratic Governor Hochul. He comes in, he writes in my humble opinion, as a former judge, and not a bad lawyer, I think, in my time, writes a ridiculous decision. And now we're on our way to an appellate review, which may well wind up in the Supreme Court of the United States. So with that lengthy introduction, John, I turn it over to you.
Yes, Judge, you're absolutely right. This was an 11th hour effort to blow up the Staten Island-Brooklyn congressional district, which has, by the way, existed since 1982. And it is a logical, compact, contiguous district which has existed over 40 years. And they made an allegation that the composition of the district going from Staten Island to Brooklyn was unfairly diminishing the ability of Black and Hispanic voters to elect a candidate of their choice. And they proposed that the district should be altered to go from Staten Island to Lower Manhattan, and cutting the population of South Brooklyn out of that seat. And this was a fairly gross effort. Under the guise of a Voting Rights Act, they were attempting to create a politically gerrymandered district, which is exactly contrary to the constitutional amendment that the people of New York voted on in 2014. The other thing that is really strange here is that, and Judge, you mentioned that in 2022 we successfully won a case in New York's highest court, the Court of Appeals, to overturn the gerrymander of congressional districts that the Democrats in Albany had attempted. Then those district lines drawn by a court expert who was appointed by the judge created many competitive districts in New York State. Then the same Mark Elias law firm brought another suit in 2024, or actually 2023, to try to have the legislature redraw the district lines. They partially succeeded in that regard, but the important thing to note is that Governor Hochul and the legislature adopted the 11th congressional district, which, as you mentioned, Nicole Malliotakis represents, all of Staten Island and part of southern Brooklyn. They adopted new lines, but didn't change the contours of New York 11 one bit. And now Mark Elias brought this new case, a phony case, in October last year. And frankly, the decision by Justice Perlman was really misguided and not grounded in the Constitution, the law, or even the facts. And so our side is appealing that decision by Justice Perlman. And the one part of the judge's order said that the new lines should be created by February 6th, which is a week from today. There's no conceivable way that possibly can occur in that time frame. So we're optimistic that our appeal will be successful, whether it's in the state courts or ultimately in the United States Supreme Court. But this is another sad example of basically politicians trying to rig the system for their benefit and not the benefit of the people. My own view is that redistricting should only occur once every decade, not this mid-year redistricting. Some Republicans have done it in other states. Some Democrats have done it in other states. I think it's all wrong. I do think that having a once-a-decade redistricting process serves the public interest to a great degree, and we shouldn't change that.
Yeah, in fact, by the way, before I turn you over to Eric and then to Jesse, I'd point out that Elias is also trying to do the same stunt in the Commonwealth of Virginia as we speak.
That's correct.
That's what he does. That's what he does. He tries to, and one of the purposes of this is to divert time, attention, resources from running for re-election to fighting in the litigation. And if they get lucky, they win a case and they get new lines. But even at worst, they devote amounts of money, tens of millions of dollars to litigations, and then that money is not available for a fair campaign.
Right. Exactly right.
Eric, your turn.
Yeah, hey, John. Thanks for joining us. One of the questions I have, maybe it's just the lawyer in me. Our listeners should know that not just anybody can bring a lawsuit. You have to have what they call standing. You have to have a legitimate right that's been compromised in some way for you to be able to bring a claim. How do we determine in these cases who has standing to bring lawsuits over a gerrymandering case?
It's a good question, Eric. The standing here was achieved by having 4 voters, 2 in Staten Island and 2 in Lower Manhattan, who were the named plaintiffs. But typically in these kind of cases, they bring party adherents as the front to create the standing. And these front plaintiffs have obviously no economic stake in trying to finance the litigation. That is financed by deep-pocketed donors who are supporting what Mark Elias attempts to do.
So what is who funds these? Where does the money come from to fund these litigations? On Elias's part. For Elias. Who's paying Elias to bring the case?
You would never find out because the money flows through organizations, C3, 4 organizations that under the tax code, which are not required to be disclosed.
Every week, the Payne family cuts straight to the real financial story.
The one question, Bob, everyone's asking is, are we in an artificial intelligence bubble? You've been through boom and bust. What do you think?
No hype, no myths. Just what actually matters to your money.
Does feel very similar to what we experienced in the 90s. Where are we, though? Are we in 1995, 1997, 1999?
Listen to the Pain Points of Wealth on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
This National Foster Care Month, Marine Toys for Tots is providing hope to children who need it most. Staff Sergeant James Caldwell, who grew up in foster care himself, shares that while handing out gifts at a Toys for Tots distribution event, a little girl looked up at him, reached into her bag, pulled out a stuffed animal and said, "Someone needs to make sure you get a toy too." That simple gesture embodies the heart of Marine Toys for Tots, ensuring every child, including those in foster care, experiences the kindness that can transform their future. Visit toysfortots.org today.
The world moves fast. Your workday, even faster. Pitching products, drafting reports, analyzing data. Microsoft 365 Copilot is your AI assistant for work. Built into Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and other Microsoft 365 apps you use. Helping you quickly write, analyze, create, and summarize. So you can cut through clutter and clear a path to your best work. Learn more at Microsoft.com/M365 Copilot.
You don't show up for easy. You show up to chase the rep that scares you, the tempo that shakes your legs. That's why you're in the Lululemon Wonder Train Tight. Built with our fastest drying fabric, it stays comfortable even when you go hard. And it's now available in no line with zero front seam, so you can tackle your toughest challenges seamlessly. Shop Wonder Train and all new Wonder Train No Line in store and online at lululemon.com.
Okay.
Do we have any sense of where they're coming from?
It's coming from very liberal donors who are trying to achieve their political ends in this way. And let's to be fair, Republicans in financing redistricting litigation will also rely upon a donor base that is interested in advancing Republican goals. So I'm not here to say that all the Republicans are pure and all the Democrats are not. But in this case, it's the Democrats with unclean hands. And the irony is that Governor Hochul and the legislative leaders in Albany, they are nominal defendants in this case because the litigation is brought against the state, and the governor and the legislative leaders saying, you created a district that's racially discriminatory. Now, can you imagine the governor and the legislature, overwhelmingly bipartisan, overwhelmingly passed these lines in 2024 and didn't change New York 11, the Nicole Malliotakis district in Brooklyn and Staten Island, didn't change those lines by one person. And yet now, a few months later, Mark Elias brings a Democratic sponsored lawsuit alleging that Governor Hochul and the legislative leaders passed a districting plan for Staten Island and southern Brooklyn that is racially discriminatory against Black and Hispanic voters. It's just utter nonsense.
And they're not even defending. They're not even defending the lines that they were part of.
Exactly.
Yeah, but what even makes it more laughable is that the leader of the Assembly and leader of the Senate are both African Americans.
That's true. Yeah, it's the whole thing. The whole thing is a very expensive joke, and unfortunately, if they were to succeed, and I don't think they will, but if they were to succeed, it would mean that approximately 300,000 voters who currently live in Nicole Malliotakis' Brooklyn area district, they would be displaced and moved into another congressional district, and voters in southern Manhattan would be displaced out of the one they're in now and moved into a different district. So that is very confusing to the average voter when those district lines change. It's difficult enough when you do it once every 10 years because you have to adjust districts based upon population changes among the states and within a state, but to do it multiple times within 10 years is very unfair to those voters.
Jesse.
John, thank you for being here, and thank you for, number one, for your service to the state of New York, both in your capacity as an assembly leader, and a member of Congress, but certainly someone who has championed and defended the mantle of fair elections and democracy here in the state of New York. One of probably the tough places to defend that with a partisan courts, as we have experienced. As I was growing up, I was taught in social studies class that we redistricted every 10 years. And it seems in this cycle that redistricting has been with us for almost right now into the 6th year of a 10-year period of time between census. Do you see any type of a future where these frivolous cases are finally exhausted to the point where we go back to, you conduct a census, you have a redistricting, you do whatever litigation that happens in the first 18 months of that, and then the people have their representatives or know who are representing them or what districts are being represented in for the balance of that 10-year period? Do you think we'll ever, after this cycle, get back to that time of period, or is this the new norm?
I'm afraid that it is the new norm, and I think that we really need cooler heads to prevail on this, both Democrat and Republican. And I think that we're at the point where we need to, at least on congressional districts, have Congress enact a law which says that redistricting can only occur once every 10 years. And I think that would be a salutary approach to this. And look, the New York Constitution says that you can't do a mid-decade redistricting unless it's ordered by a court. The Democrats in Albany, they want to override the Independent Redistricting Commission and remove it. This was a reform that Ed Koch advocated for a number of years, and we had Democrats and Republicans saying, take the politics out of these lines as much as you can. You can't always take the political considerations out. Let's be fair about that. But doing it once every 10 years and having the bipartisan commission that was set up in 2014, largely through the advocacy of former Mayor Ed Koch, I think that's a more desirable thing than having this process continually go on and on within that decade. I mean, if they succeed in this Staten Island litigation that they have brought, that would mean that we would have changed the districts 3 times already in the first decade. In the first 6 years of this, after the last census in 2020, we would have had to change districts 3 times, and that is crazy.
Well, the problem, if you step back, people could say, well, why do we care so much about one district? The fact of the matter is, what you're really talking about is you're talking about a significant district where you only have one Republican member of Congress for the entire city of New York. And it's very, very important that both parties are represented in the halls of Congress and are able to go to the White House and to deal with the issues that face both the city and the state of New York. It's a very big deal to have bipartisan work done to protect and defend the city of New York's interest and all of New York State's interest. So that's one issue. But this is really about this is really about raw political power, and this is really about who's going to control the United States House of Representatives come the new Congress.
That's right.
And what I submit to Jesse and to Eric and to you, Congressman Faso, is, in the immortal words of Obama, elections have consequences. It's very, very important, and I say this as the House Democrat, it's very important that you have a two-party system in the city of New York, in the state of New York, and, of course, in the country. And it's very, very important if President Trump is going to be successful in protecting our national interests, our economy, protect our borders, make sure that we're not overrun by Islamists or cartel members or gangs, that we're not overrun by corruption, that we have a viable country that can go forward. We need to maintain the House leadership under Speaker Johnson, because otherwise, if the House is taken over by the Democrats have already announced, John, that what they're going to do is they're going to try to impeach Trump again. And we all know the likelihood is that the Republicans will hold the Senate. it's more problematic with respect to the House. But now you're going to have the congressional committees having these nonsense hearings on every issue. They're going to use all their subpoena powers to embarrass and cause problems. They're going to try to impeach. You're going to divert the president's attention. He's going to have to fight to get his agenda sustained. These are real problems. As a former legislative leader, both in Albany and as a member of Congress, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it's unfortunate, very unfortunate, that so much of the Democratic Party agenda today is just geared at one thing, which is to get Donald Trump. And look, I don't agree with President Trump on every issue, but I think that it's important that we keep this kind of partisan warfare to a minimum, because we have major issues that the country is facing, both domestically and internationally. And by diverting attention on a lot of things that are really extraneous to the lives of average Americans, I think that's against our national interest. So I really think that, we have problems with how are we going to finance the Social Security system, which in 2034 will start running out of funds. How are we going to deal with the tremendous national debt and deficits that we're running, basically imposing the costs of our spending today on our children and grandchildren? And how are we going to confront the rise of China and the aggressiveness of China and Russia and others around the world who really want to undermine American democracy and the system that we've all grown to know and understand as the bulwark of freedom in the world. I mean, that's what they are out to do, to undermine the democratic process. You talk about threats to democracy. Well, Xi Jinping and Vladimir Putin and the Iranian mullahs, they're the biggest threats to democracy that we have. It's not Donald Trump.
Absolutely, well said. So, Congressman John Faso, on behalf of Chairman Garcia, Eric Levine, and myself, it's been a great delight having you on this show today. We're going to have you back as this case unfolds. Hopefully, this will be resolved earlier rather than later, but if necessary, we should all be supporting your efforts and the efforts of the people fighting against this illegal, unconstitutional gerrymander against the Congressional District Number 11, which is now held by a great Congresswoman, Nicole Maliotakis. John, thank you for joining us. And I want to sign off on behalf of Eric, Jesse, you, Congressman, myself. This has been Let the Record Show. And as always, God bless you, God bless your families, and God bless America. Thank you for listening.
Thanks for listening to Let the Record Show. You can hear Let the Record Show Sunday mornings at 6. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode so you never have to wonder.
What the heck is going on here?
Every week, the Payne family cuts straight to the real financial story.
The one question, Bob, everyone's asking is, are we in an artificial intelligence bubble? You've been through boom and bust. What do you think?
No hype, no myths. Just what actually matters to your money.
Does feel very similar to what we experienced in the 90s. Where are we, though? Are we in 1995, 1997, 1999?
Listen to the Pain Points of Wealth on the Red Apple Podcast Network.